Good afternoon, all participants. Once again, I welcome you all for the session 9 on day 3. So, I just once again welcome Mr. Rajkumar sir for delivering session on energy storage systems. Sir, now the session is for you, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, so thank you very much, sir, for the welcome. You already seen before this, lunch break, we have already seen a lot of things about lab units associated tools. So now let us just, explore much more things about how, these tools are used in much more, compelling way. Before that, let me just share my screen. So yeah. So I hope everyone can see my screen. I'll just close the unwanted screens and I'll share my PT. So now our session is going to be about energy storage systems for automotive units, right? So already we have seen lots of core information about how people can make use of tools available to create power electronics for automotive systems, and what are the key technologies which can be accessed. Okay, and not only stopping with respect to simulation, how we can move forward, what are the tools available within the NI technology, those things we've already seen. Okay, now what we're going to see is entirely a little bit more, not really little bit more advanced, but we're going to focus on other aspect of the electrical vehicle components, the mostly because this full Atal FDP is about focusing on electrical vehicle. And if you see, core focus when we talk about electrical vehicles, we'll speak about these three things. Okay, so in terms of in the perspective of electronics and electrical. Okay, so but there are other domains also available inside the electrical vehicle, like communication, okay, and other things like software inside. I mean, software generally means monitoring software is going to be different from let's say infotainment and other types of softwares running inside your automotive units. Okay, so it's like a multi-domain level system which is done inside your automotive unit, right? So core focus with respect to in the perspective of electronics and electrical, okay, is going to be these three things. Number one is the traction battery. Okay, that is going to be the energy storage system. Okay, that is what we are going to focus more. Okay, next one is going to be the power inverter or controller. Okay, so typically it's going to be based on your what we saw like last session. So how we design and work with the power electronic components inside your automotive unit. The third one is going to be your electrical traction motor. Okay, your NI ecosystem can handle all these three things, and engineers around the world have been doing it. Automotive companies, they have been doing it. So let's focus on the energy storage unit for automotive system. So most of the things like several batteries have been used for energy storage, and apart from that, furthermore, more advanced battery stuff is also coming. Okay, I thought we had a question. Fine. Do we have a question? No. So energy storage inside the automotive unit. Okay, there have been plenty of choices before. Okay, before when internal combustion engine was there, people was using lead acid battery just to power auxiliary systems inside your battery battery units. Okay, to power auxiliary units inside your automotive vehicle. And now we find ourselves using variations of lithium ion battery, okay, in order to power, only for the reason no only for the reason that it carries more electropotential weight. And we are still doing considerable amount of research. When I say we, not I mean, in the world, people are doing research to increase the amount of power stored as well as the amount of discharge the energy storage can do. Okay, so basically supercapacitors, ultra capacitors, those concepts have been still in infancy stage. People, no company has ever come close to making it into a reality, without compromising the cost and the materials used, right? So now, as for now, okay, we are stuck with the variations of lithium-ion battery, with one being more efficient than the other. But let's see why lithium-ion is now more, focused apart from the lead-acid battery. So when we compare lithium-ion and lead-acid battery, okay, if you see lithium-ion battery did not have much challenge, okay, apart from charging it and discharging it, and once in a while we have to replace the inside liquid, I mean the sulfuric acid inside it. Okay, but for lithium ion battery we didn't have to replace anything, but there are a lot of stakes involved when we are dealing with lithium. Okay, lithium is volatile material. Okay, so we have to be very careful in handling the battery itself. Okay, so what are the challenges here? The advantage, if you see, when compared to a lead acid battery to your lithium ion battery, is it has high specific energy, okay, compared to your lead acid battery. In fact, let's say if you take 1 kilogram of lithium ion battery, lead acid battery, and 1 kilogram of lithium ion, okay, lead acid lithium ion, okay, and if it's fully charged, you're going to find that even though they are same weight, your lithium ion battery is going to hold 3 times more energy than your lead acid, okay, for the same weight. So in this instance, let's say for same weight, okay, if you find a 35 or 40 ampere 35 ampere hour or 40 ampere hour, okay, you're going to find specific energy for the same weight, okay, it's going to be 100 265 watt ampere hour. Okay, so that much difference could be found, meaning that in order for long run, okay, it makes a lot of sense for us to use lithium ion battery, right? But there are cons as well. When charging your lead acid battery, okay, even like small variations in voltage during charging, okay, it's not good, but it passes the current to the next cell by cell equalization. Okay, automatic cell balancing will happen in case of lead acid battery, okay, with very tiny amount of damage. But in case of lithium ion battery, a slight over voltage, okay, can result in extreme damage. Okay, the cell will puff up and it will still burst. So lithium being a very volatile material, okay, it needs to be handled properly. Okay, we need to have additional circuitry to make sure that the voltage never exceeds. Can tolerate 0% SOC. Okay, lead acid battery. When discharging, you can discharge without any charge being stored in your lead acid battery at all, fully discharged. Okay, but if you look at lithium ion battery, there is a voltage range at which it has to be maintained for its electrochemical balance not to be disturbed. Okay, it will have serious damage when discharged below certain value. So this is with respect to energy storage mechanism. Okay, but we need to have certain systems, okay, in order to make it balanced, right? Discharging, all these things. So in order to do this, okay, we need to have a monitoring system, okay, which will not only monitor the battery, okay, but along with it, it will be also be able to monitor other other energy energy consumption inside your vehicle. Okay, so it's typically going to monitor, compute, communicate data from one point to another. Okay, so it's going to monitor the state of the battery, and like acquire the basic information of the battery, okay, like voltage, current, and other things. Okay, and apart from that, compute the necessary secondary information from the battery. Okay, third one is going to be communicate this data to a main, basically like for a vehicle you're going to have a central processing unit, CPU of the vehicle will be there. Okay, if it's a modern day vehicle, okay, which is going to be like the center point where all the information needs to be fed up. Okay, so using a CAN protocol, that is commonly used in automotive systems. Okay, using CAN protocol, you will pass the data from energy storage system to your the main unit. So the main unit will be the master, and other things will be slave. Production, battery connected load. Okay, these things will be managed by the energy storage system. So in that aspect, what values will be computed, you may ask. Okay, so using this energy storage system, okay, you will be not only managing the charging and discharging of the battery, okay, you will be by that way monitoring the state of the charge as well, okay, of the energy storage device, okay, typically a battery. So state of charge is basically a percentage of charge available in your energy device. So it will be from 0% to 100%. Okay, there are many ways to measure this. Direct measurement, and direct measurements will just measure voltage and current, and you will try to compute what is the status charge. It will be depending on the equation of the battery. Okay, second one is basically by correlating voltage level of the battery and discharge rate of the battery, and mapping it with the percentage available. So this is one way of doing it, but this has to be done by conducting the routine calibration. Okay, and this is mostly it's automatically calibrated inside the battery. Okay, battery will have battery management system, which I think you have a separate session on that. Okay, maybe we will talk about it. And adaptive systems, it's new system. Okay, nowadays neural network, artificial intelligence have come up. So by using this, by feeding the data of voltage, current, and temperature, okay, you will be able to adaptively find how much state of the charge is available, or making use of one or two methods like this and trying to find out what is the state of the charge. Okay, hybrid methods basically. So what does this concerns us with? Why do we need an energy storage system? Okay, mainly due to monitor the status of the energy storage unit. Okay, how much cycles it will work. Okay, how much cycles until we have to replace it. Okay, those kind of stuff we need to be able to monitor. Okay, in this case, this is the battery discharge curve. I mean, cycles curve, cycles per state of the health. that is depth of discharge. Okay, if you see, this is number of cycles of charging and discharging, and this is the depth of discharge available. Okay, depth of discharge is also called as state of charge. So when during the manufacturing of that battery, okay, you will have 100%, okay, of the total specified quantity, okay, or the capacity. That will come until 500% of the cycle. But after that, internally, electrochemical balance, okay, all these things will change. The battery chemistry will change. Okay, you'll start to build up unwanted elements. Okay, so it depends, right? And cell will start to build impedance, okay, which is very bad. So as the number of charges cycles increases, okay, you'll start to see that first it will be 100, then out of the total available component, okay, you'll have only 90%, then 80, then 70, 60, like that will keep on going. And your battery manufacturer, okay, they will say it will be good to use until 3000 cycles. Okay, they'll say that only. Okay, so the terms and conditions apply will state 3000 up until 3000 cycles, they will say. Okay, up until 3000 cycles, you'll be able to utilize, I mean, at least up to 20 cycles. Okay, that they will not say. Okay, but in order to truly understand how it's going to work, okay, up to 500 cycles. For example, this particular battery, okay, it was able to work its full potential up to 500 charging and discharging cycle. Right? And other things which will be computed is how much number of, how much maximum charging discharging current it took place in a in automotive system, how much kilowatt hour charge delivered since the last cycle. Okay, so charging and discharging cycle, these things will be data logged. And internal impedance of the cell, as I was saying, okay, it changes due to every charging discharging cycle. So by computing this data, you will be able to understand when the cell is going to go bad, and charging delivered since the last storage. Okay, this will also be computed. This will be recorded basically, and total energy delivered since the first use. So by storing all this information, you will try to understand. Okay, you'll try to point a graph and say, okay, this was able to work with our load and with our usage. Okay, it was able to work until this. And total operating time since the first use, and total number of cycles. These things will be monitored. Energy storage systems should also be capable of handling protection as well. Okay, protection like over voltage, over current, under voltage, under current, temperature, those kinds of things. And again, there are plenty of tools available, as I was saying, which will help us to simulate. Okay, but right now we are not going to we will be talking about simulation as well. Okay, but there are plenty of tools available in the NI environment, okay, which will help us monitor the energy storage units, and not only monitor energy storage units, which will also be able to compute the necessary information for our systems. Okay, so as I was saying, plenty of tools are available. Okay, it's up to you, but the tool which we use to do these things is NILab. Okay, as we already saw how LabVIEW was easily able to develop a control system. Okay, we were able to develop our own energy monitoring system as well. Okay, by using the component combination of both software and hardware. So LabVIEW has graphical programming. LabVIEW has hardware integration as well. And apart from that, NI is the company behind LabVIEW, but also NI has particular partners, several partners who are focused on the EV development and energy monitoring system as well. Okay, so they develop their own products. Okay, which is focused in R&D as well as production environment for this kind of stuff. Okay, so that's why apart from what we saw in software, okay, NI lab, NI hardware is the differentiator for our system. So there is, let's say, as I was saying, okay, the first number one reason people go for LabVIEW is hardware integration. And to program this hardware also, we don't need complicated, programming methodologies. We will be able to, program it by using LabVIEW's graphical tool only, and configuration is also very easy here, right? So that level of flexibility is available inside LabVIEW. Okay, logging data like voltage, current, and not only that, okay, you'll be able to acquire data with respect to digital and communication protocols as well, right? So NI data acquisition ecosystem, there are a lot of data acquisition systems are available. Okay, we are going to focus on a particular tool called as NIDAC, okay, which we have here available with us. Okay, I'm just going to show you how we can acquire simple voltage and current. Okay, let's say from a battery in order for us to monitor it, or from any energy storage unit, how we can monitor and control it. Okay, those kind of stuff, how we can do using this. Okay, we'll be seeing about that. Okay, basically NI data auction units are going to be hardwares which is capable of acquiring data from external world. Okay, depending on the card we are using, it's going to acquire this data. It's going to bring this data inside your computer so that you can analyze, log data, and visualize this data as well. Okay, and this we can do this 24/7. Okay, due to the ruggedness of this hardware. So let me just bring this hardware, okay, and I'll just tell you how we can configure it and communicate with it, and how we can measure values with it. Okay, just give me a moment. I will be back. So with me, I have a MyDAC, okay, hardware. So it's going to look something like this. Okay, for us to understand how data acquisition plays a vital role in energy storage system. Okay, not only with respect to monitoring. Okay, but later, let's say if you have a an embedded system which interacts with that. Okay, which is monitoring its remote unit. Okay, let's say if you want to control it. Okay, this will also help in doing that. Okay, and for further battery testing, battery monitoring, and all those things if you want to do, okay, this is the vital tool. And of course, this tool is very small, small, and not only it's small. Okay, its capability is very small. Okay, when I say small, the capability is very small, but because it's a teaching device, okay, for academics. Okay, but let's say if you want to build something for industry, okay, where you want to measure high voltages, high current, and waveform measurements, if you want to do, let's say, okay, you have furthermore capable devices as well. Okay, which is up to you. Okay. But this hardware, okay, it's it's for starting level. Okay, so it's going to be having the things which a laboratory requires. Okay, with very list specifications, of course. Okay, it has analog input, analog output. That is again two polarities are also there here. Okay, when I say analog input, it's not like 0 to 5 volts. Okay, you can measure negative voltage as well here. Okay, plus or minus 10 volts you can go. And analog output, digital input, DIO, and also counter generation measurements is also possible. So these channels you can use it as either an oscilloscope, function generator, DMM, body analyzer, dynamics analyzer. Okay, you can use it as, since it's connected to computer. Okay, the capabilities of all these instruments are made possible by virtual instrumentation. Okay, so using this device, you can basically, by using analog input, you can measure the voltage and current of a battery. Okay, by using appropriate circuitry, of course. Right. So because using digital, okay, you can either use a relay to switch on and switch off battery's connection to the load. Okay, it's up to us. But you need an appropriate hardware to monitor and control all these things. So an example would be this hardware. Okay, if you want to measure high power battery also up to 60 volts, you have a DMM available. Okay, with which you can read up to 60 volts DC and 2 ampere current or DC. If you want to go more than that, you have to go for industrial hardware with respect to specifications. So if you see here, we have industrial tag. Okay, there's a DMM card here and other cards with respect to its own specifications, it will be there. Okay, so but if we know this, okay, the programming is same for the industrial tag as well. So let's see how it works. Okay. So I connected my MyDAC hardware to my computer. And what you can see here is, okay, these instruments are available. Okay, like oscilloscope, function generator. Okay, so this hardware is typically used to read data from these hardwares. This software is typically used to read data from this hardware. Okay, and your MyDAC is connected to your computer via your USB cable of your laptop or whatever it is. So this is vital for interacting with your external world, your computer for further analysis. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a function generator and oscilloscope. Okay, I'm going to use a function generator and oscilloscope, and I'm going to see how my MyDAC is going to measure from external world and bring it inside my virtual world, that is my computer. So here you can see that I have this function generator app and oscilloscope app. Okay, I have selected AO0 and AI0. Okay, AO0 is generator and AI0 is measure, oscilloscope. Okay, and here I have connected my MyDAC to my computer, and that's why I'm seeing here an option of MyDAC 1. So when I hit this button, okay, from my AO0, whatever I ask it to generate is going to generate. Okay, and in order to see whether I'm going to be able to measure, I have an oscilloscope. So basically, I've taken 2 wires and just connected both together. So whatever I may generate here, I should be able to get here. So when I click the start button, okay, you can see that I'm generating 100 hertz, 1 volt peak to peak amplitude and sine wave. Okay, and the same thing I'm measuring here. So if you increase the frequency, you can see that this here also will increase. Okay, so 2.2061, here also 2.205 is coming. Okay, some variations will be, small variations will be there. Okay, so it is always going to be there. So now this is happening because your function is generating wave data and you're acquiring the same thing in your oscilloscope. But you need not only use a function generator. Okay, you can use this AO0 not only as a function generator. Okay, you can use it as a, you know, a DC level generator as well. Okay, you can generate some voltage and, you know, use it as it is as well. In this case, I will be able to generate 0 volts right now. Okay, I can increase to, let's say, 5 volts. So it's generating almost 5 volts, or I mean 5 volts. So typically a battery will be having an appropriate voltage. Okay, and that voltage could be generated by using this oscilloscope. But here, normally when I'm going to measure something, okay, like a static value, okay, like DC voltage, it's not necessary for me to use a waveform. Okay, so in that case, I need to have something which is going to show me only like voltmeter data, like that. Okay, but that is not, unfortunately, that's not like static data measurement is not available in my instrument panel. Okay, possibly I can use a data logger, but when I use the data logger, I cannot use this, so I will stop this. So I run this. Okay, you can see that I'm able to read the data. Not a waveform, okay, but I'm just reading a single point value. And if you have to log the data, okay, I can log the data. Okay, but I have to give the file path to it. But still, you can make it much more better. Okay, like you can customize your own application. Like if you see, this is like a DC level output. Okay, this is data logger. But let's say I want to have something like a power supply, like appearance. A knob with where I can vary my voltage, and here also I should be able to see the data in a form of voltmeter. Okay, in this case, this is not really a viable option. So now, how to customize this then? How to customize this energy management system? Okay, so in that case, if you saw all these tools, okay, all the equipments, virtual instruments were developed in LabVIEW, which means there is a freedom for us to develop whatever instruments is required for our specification. Right? So how do we proceed then? That's why we have the hardware with us. Okay, now to access the data from this hardware, okay, we can make use of a DAC-MX hardware, DAC-MX driver. Okay, basically we have this DAC hardware with us. Okay, now to access the contents of the DAC-MX, when DAC hardware, okay, we can use this DAC MS hardware programmatically. We can access the data into your Labby program, and we all know that the moment we get the data into your Labby program, we can basically use it for further analysis by using several toolkits available with us. So hardware is a critical differentiator for your applications. So let's say if you want to access the data from your computer with the hardware. Yes. Someone raised their hand. Okay, just type in the question in the chat box, ma'am. I'll answer it when I see it. Or you can unmute and ask the question also. Fine. Now, how do we make it to our advantage? Okay, right now I don't have any batteries where I can measure. Okay, but in order to measure, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of my analog input, okay, which is supposedly connected to, let's say, a battery, okay, from where I can measure some data. Okay, in order to do that, we have to programmatically access the content of my hardware. Okay, and for that we have this driver available with us. And right now it's been only like one day. Okay, since we have learned what LabVIEW itself is for some people. Some people maybe you're using it. Okay, but using programming methodology, okay, there will be a lot of difference will be there and a lot of new things will be here. Okay, and not transit from already existing knowledge to what is available. People may not be able to, like, people already would have used text-based programming language and lab is completely new. Okay, and in order to get a head start, okay, in order to get a easiest way to program, okay, so there are some easy to use functions like DAC assist, okay, where we don't need to program anything explicitly. You just drag it and drop it here. And instead of us telling one by one what to do, like sequencing the step with programming, this one function is going to do everything. Okay, so when we use these type of functions for creating our acquisition applications, monitoring applications, okay, it's going to ask whether we want to acquire data or generate data. Okay, let's say you have created all the, you have all the batteries with you. You want to just monitor and do something with it. Okay, maybe log the data with later. Okay, so in that case, you just need to use this acquire signal. Okay, if you're going to acquire data from external world, or if you're going to generate something, you're going to do a generation. Okay, so right now I'm just going to acquire the data, analog input from voltage. Okay, you have other options as well. Okay, voltage, temperature, strain, current, all these things are available. Okay, but this particular hardware, this educational hardware, is only supporting voltage. Okay, others it will not support. Current it will support as long as you are having a shunt resistor, right? So using that shunt resistor, you will be able to measure what is the voltage across that resistor, and you will be able to convert that voltage to current. Okay, that you can do. But apart from that, other things will not support. Okay, so maybe resistance measurements also, you need to give a known resistance value, so it will tell us the unknown resistance value. So this kind of trade-offs are there. Okay, it will not be able to measure accelerometer, RTD, and all will not support. For that, separate hardwares are present, separate modules are available. So MyDAC, okay, I'm going to measure this voltage for now. If I want more channels, I can select more channels. Right now, I'm not going to go do that. I'm just going to say AI0, finish. Okay, so here we haven't done any programming as of now. Okay, so here I have this. We haven't done any explicit programming. Okay, if you see, I have like how I have to measure, what is the voltage range I have to measure. Those kind of things are available here. Okay, I can also do a checkup here. Okay, once whether it's working fine or not. Okay, whether it's doing its logic or not. Okay, so it seems to be doing. It seems to be measuring the voltage level. Okay, so there are plenty of different ways how I can measure it. Okay, right now I'm just going to do sample on demand, which means only one sample per iteration. Okay, but if you want to get like waveform information, which is absolutely not necessary, okay, for energy storage systems, let's say a battery, okay, because mostly it's going to be DC only. So it's not necessary for us to go for N samples where it's going to give you waveform information. Okay, on demand is fine. So when I click OK, instead of me writing the code from scratch, this will write it for me. Okay, so this will read the data from that port and just show the data to me in whatever format I desire. Okay, so this will be done. And apart from that, I can either display the data in the form of numeric indicator, or I can display in the form of a gauge, okay, a meter. Okay, I can say battery voltage, let's say, for example. This is also battery voltage. So here I didn't do any complex, programming like how you would do using embedded C and stuff. Okay, I just place a block which will measure. Again, I didn't do any programming. It just gave me some options from which I selected what I wanted and just give OK. The program was generated on its own. Okay, so if I run this program once, it's going to just run once. Okay, but if I want it to happen continuously, I'll make use of LabVIEW's programming, methodologies just like how normal programming would work. Okay, similarly, we have in LabVIEW also we have something like loops, for loop, while loop, case, switch cases, and all these things are available. So we can make use of this to do your measurements continuously. So for a while loop to stop, you have to give a condition. Okay, so that condition is going to be here. Okay, using this will measure it. Okay, but before that, your while loop will consume a lot of processor speed. So I'll add a delay so in order not continuously run. So I'll have a delay of 100 milliseconds because every 0.1 second only this will run. So I'll just run this program. You can see that it's measuring something. Okay, so this is bad. This is voltage is measured at that point. Okay, wire disconnected. Right now I haven't connected anything because I don't have any battery to connect it to. But if you have a battery to connect it to, yes, it will surely measure whatever it needs to measure. I can also change the limits as well. Here, right? And this hardware is not only capable of measuring from a battery. Okay, if you know how to create a model of the battery, you can make this hardware to emulate the battery as well. Okay, so emulate a battery in the sense, using a battery, analog output channel as output to a battery. It's like simulating the battery. Okay, in this case, I'm just going to use analog output. Instead of acquiring signals, I'll use generate signal. Analog output, voltage AO0. And here also, I'm not going to generate, a waveform. I'm just going to generate one sample. So not only do you need to measure wave data. Okay, let's say if you want to simulate a battery. Okay, simulate in the sense emulate a battery. Okay, battery emulators are very common in automotive industry. Before actually getting the actual battery, first they emulate whether it's working fine or not. Okay, so by using the characteristic equation of the battery, they will try to do it. And of course, those algorithms, they won't do it in LabVIEW. Okay, obviously, industry standard tool for algorithm development is MATLAB. So using MATLAB, they'll model the battery and they will bring that model inside LabVIEW because LabVIEW easily integrates with hardware. Okay, so create the model using LabVIEW in MATLAB and they do this emulation. Okay, something called HAL, hardware, hardware in loop. Okay, they'll try to emulate the characteristics of battery in real time. So I have this here, right? And this is battery monitor voltage. And in order to emulate a battery, I need to use a analog output. Okay, so to analog output, I'm just giving the value of a knob. Okay, this is, let's say, battery emulator value. So here we're going to emulate the battery, and here we're going to measure the battery measurement. Okay, so here we have the battery emulator, and here we have the battery monitor. Okay, so basically at the back end, what is happening is you are trying to generate some voltage, and that voltage is getting measured here. Okay, but if you have real battery for which we can measure, okay, you can basically connect this, analog input across the battery terminals, and we can measure it. Okay, but right now I'm just emulating it. And here you can see it's showing 0 volts. Okay, exactly 0 volts along with some noise. Okay, but here if you see Here also we have 0 volts, that's why it's showing 0 volts there. Okay, so let's say I'm just in the, voltage to, let's say, some volts. Okay, 3.3 volts or something. Okay, so here also you'll be saying the same 3.3 volts. Okay, in order to stop the program, I have to stop both loops. So I can set the exact voltage as well. Okay, 10 is the maximum voltage which can be generated, plus or minus 10 volts. So that's what we are getting here as well. Okay, so you can vary the value from plus 10 to minus 10. That's the capability of the hardware itself. Let's say if you want to see the historical value of the battery, in that case you can use a chart. Okay, you have an option for that as well. Okay, here we'll be seeing a lot of changes because if you see the scale, okay, it's an auto scaling mode. Okay, that's why you'll be seeing, even slight variations will be seen as the noise. So in that case, we can set like 10 volts maximum value and minimum value will be minus 10. If you change anything here also will change. So you can write a code where you can emulate the battery in the way of battery discharging. So slowly at a given rate, it will slowly discharge. So based on that, you can basically do something with it. Right, so that again depends on the application requirements. Okay, so that's how we make use of DAC for measurement and both emulation as well. So in this case, right now, this is one of our requirements to test the battery. Okay, battery discharge curve. Okay, where we load the battery with a dummy load, and we measured both voltage and current with respect to time. Okay, we did this test for now 1 hour. Okay, and that data is now the discharge curve we are seeing here. Okay, and this was done by one of the an appropriate hardware. Okay, which has the capability to measure voltage, both voltage and current. Okay, not only that, that battery had a smart capability. Scan bus was there in the battery, so we were able to get data from that battery as well. So with that, we can say whether the data logged by our program is same as the data fed by the battery also. Right. So this is what is about data acquisition from the battery. Okay, so it's a simple data acquisition logging only. Okay, but yet we are yet to see about how we can log the data. Okay, I mean not log the data, how we can process the data or analyze the data. Okay, from a valid battery. But before that, let me see if anyone has any questions so that fine. So this is for acquiring the data from real world and processing it. But next is going to be what? Next is going to be how we can process the data. Okay, we got the data. Okay, next is going to be how we can compute the next data which is required. Okay, so in that case, we need to have an appropriate toolkit. Like if you see, for our control and simulation, control system designing, okay, we have this toolkit called as control and simulation. Okay, if you want to do simple signal processing in LabVIEW, we have the signal processing toolkit also available. Okay, and similarly, for anything to deal with electrical, okay, we have a toolkit called as electrical power toolkit. Okay, using this electrical power toolkit, we can analyze the measured data by using the hardware measured data. We can bring it inside LabVIEW and process it with respect to our requirements. Okay, so electrical power toolkit is going to have almost everything. Okay, and all of its algorithms is IEC certified. Okay, meaning it is authorized to be used in industrial setting. Okay, industrial conventions and industrial specifications will be followed. Okay, like for example, if you see, if you see this NEMA imbalance for a motor, okay, there is a standard in compliance standard in NEMA MG 101.2014. Like that, some of the functions will have uh, compliance format which is followed. Okay, like power quality. So if you see like frequency measurement, you can see how it calculates and how it is compliant with EN 50160 aggregation. Okay, so like that, most of the functions are following the standards. Okay, which needs to be followed, which means it's ready to be used in an industrial setting. So what's next then? So we are going to do this. Okay, we are going to analyze the acquired data and we are going to process it. Okay, and when I say acquire the analyzed data, we don't have we are not going to acquire any data per se, okay, because we don't have any hardware with us. Okay, but what we do have is, we have the data with us. Okay, as I already said, LabVIEW is very good at storing data, logging the data. Okay, as required, right? So LabVIEW has data logging capabilities. Okay, meaning once you get the data from an hardware, okay, we can log it or we can record the data. Okay, with our requirements. Okay, so like that, we have already recorded some EV battery discharge. Okay, by some of the tests which is have done. Okay, from that we will be able to calculate secondary data, like from your energy. From your power, we can calculate how much energy has been expended, or how many uh, charge has been discharged. Those kind of things. Okay, we can see. So how do we do that? First, we need to have a data with us. So let me just get the data ready so that we can see it. So I'll get the data from a file, and yeah. Okay, let me share the screen again. So here I have a logged data from the drive profiles. Okay, EV drive profile, which will have voltage, current data from the electrical vehicle. Okay, which I could see here, in the form of a file. This is similar to how the data will be stored inside your, which will be acquired from your by using your hardware from the battery. So I can either directly acquire from the battery and process it. That's called as online processing. Okay, there's also one more thing called as offline processing. Okay, where if we don't know, if we don't want to immediately process the data, but if you want to, first store the data in a file, then later on we should be able to get the data back and use it for analysis. Okay, if we have something like that, okay, we'll store the data in a file, then retrieve it back, right, and you'll be able to analyze it. So in that case, we have 3 such files. Okay, so we'll try to just find the energy value. Then I'll just try to show you demo on how we can do for charge as well. Okay, computing this data, a secondary data is very important. Okay, only voltage and current will be there. Okay, we can compute whatever is required. Okay, so to do that, first we need to get the path of the file. So for path, okay, we'll have a file path control, okay, from which the file can be fetched. Okay, my desktop, I have something called logged data, and the logged data, I have something called EV drive profile. Okay, this is the file from which I have to extract the drive profile. Drive profile will contain the voltage and current data of my electrical vehicle during the testing. Okay. So to read this, I need to use a specific function. Okay, it's called a TDMS function, file. Okay, it's a specific file with respect to NI. The NI specific file. They have separate functions for that. Okay, I just need to use this function. Okay, first function is opening. Okay, this function is called open, TDMS, open, shall open. Then I need to use a okay, I can even view the file before. Okay, how the data is inside, I can view it. So you can see that this is how the file, data is inside the file. Okay, I can close this and it's going to be closed. Okay, now I have to extract it back for further analysis. I'll open it. Then what I'll do is I'll read the data. Opening is just going to open. I have to read the data, so I'll read the data. Then once it is done, I have to close the file. And this is what the data will be. So I run this program. This is what the recorded data of voltage waveform and the current waveform it will be. And this is not really good way to analyze anything. So what we'll do is we'll essentially Okay. Now, instead of viewing the data in the form of unknown way, okay, what I can do is I can use LabVIEW's visualization capabilities and just read the data and view it here. So previously, a separate window got opened. Using that, we saw the data. But now we are viewing the data in the display itself. Okay, now we have to analyze this data. Okay, to get how much, let's say we'll try to do how much energy is consumed. So to get the energy, okay, right now if you see both of the data, both voltage and current is in the same, data wire itself. Okay, that's because it's called as waveform array. Okay, array of waveform. Okay, I need to separate both array and voltage and current into separate object. So if you see, I have both voltage and current over here. Okay, previously I was only seeing the straight line because both of them were in the same line, right? So, but if you see, both of them are in different scale. Okay, this is from 350 to 410 to 350. Okay, voltage is from. Okay, here it's from 0 to 800, 600. Okay, auto scaling makes it look like both of them are same. Okay, but what I can do is I can disable the auto scale. I can make this from 450 to 0, 0. Here's just a straight line. And current, I can make it like disable auto scale. -800 to -400. Something like this. Okay, this is how the actual data is. Now we have voltage and current. People might wonder how we can convert this energy. Okay, basically, if you want to get energy, people need to get power, and by integrating power with respect to time is what gives us the energy, right? So we have voltage, we have current. Okay, not to get power, we just need to multiply it with each other. Multiplying voltage and current together is going to give you power. Okay, so we have voltage, current, and power. And to get the energy from the battery, energy expenditure by a battery. Okay, so we have something called as electrical power. We have something called as battery functions. And battery functions, okay, we can either measure what is DC power. Okay, this also can do. Okay, or you can get what is joule, right? If you have the watt value, okay, it will give you the joule value. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky. So we have a waveform of power with us. Okay, but this needs only one single vary at one instant. Because instantaneous power value is needed. Okay, so instantaneous power we need, and at what interval did we acquire, that also is needed. Okay, that value is easy to get. It's basically this waveform information is what is required. Okay, it will give us, this is the power. Okay, power can be given not directly. Okay, basically we need to extract the power waveform data. Okay, to extract data from power, what you need to do is you need to use waveform. Okay, there's something called we get waveform components. So basically, dt is nothing but your interval. Okay, so between two different acquisitions, how much time is called as dt. So that's what we give. And y is basically, the value which we give. And this value, even though it connects, okay, we should not directly wire it like that. Okay, we have to send this data one by one by using a for loop. This is array of data. Okay, I have to send each and every instant value. Okay, if I send directly, it will assume like I have n channels. Okay, each and every column in a row is going to be, in the array is going to be different channels, it will assume. Okay, so we don't want to do like that. Okay, we want to just calculate for one channel only. Okay, one by one we have to calculate. Okay, this is going to integrate inside. Okay, integrate watt to joule. And what we get output is cumulative energy. So now what we have with us is voltage, current, power, and energy. Okay, you can see all these things in one single graphics also. Okay, one thing we need to do is we need to convert it to waveform in order for us to look at it in a better way. So I'll use an existing waveform like this, and I'll update the calculate energy alone. So this is how we'll get the EV drive profile, energy discharging, okay, from your measurement. Okay, voltage will be there, current will be there. Again, slowly, once you start consuming it, slowly the energy will get depleted. Can slowly it will come. After you stop it, it's going to stop at a rather one place. Okay, similarly, we can do both, energy and charge calculation both. Okay, and display the value in a better manner as well. Okay. So only thing you need to do is you need to select the appropriate file, and you can either display the whole data at the same time, or you can make it look like this data is getting grabbed at real time and processing is also happening at real time. So if you see, this is like a playback, okay, of the data, just as how it was acquired at that given time. So whatever was recorded is just getting played back in real time. And at the last, you will have all of them displayed in a fashion which is acceptable by everyone. So charge of the battery energy, the waveform will look same. almost similar, but if you look, this is in terms of joules. Okay, and the scale of it is in 80,000s. Okay, and here charge basically it's in coulombs. Okay, initially it's 200 C is there, then slowly it discharges and it comes down as it discharges. Number of charge gets depleted. So this recording was done by similar hardware, okay, over a period of time, which is fixed inside the electrical vehicle for test. Then later on, when we want to do offline analysis, we got the data back from that hardware and we were able to analyze by using this, LabVIEW software. So that's about it for energy storage system and management. Okay, so some people might ask who have actually done this. Okay, use these tools. Okay, so creation of energy storage and energy management, okay, was done by using this by this company called as Primus Power. Okay, they specialized in this energy storage units. Okay, Primus Power, they created zinc bromide battery, and for this they needed the energy monitoring and management. And for that they used Compact Rio platform of NI. Okay, and to develop the Compact Rio platform, they developed the full software using NI LabVIEW. Okay, so LabVIEW, Compact Rio, Energy Pod was used. And this is their battery itself. Okay, and if you see, each and every battery had internally it has a energy monitoring units. Okay, and these energy monitoring units will communicate with each other, okay, by using the CAN protocol, and all of this will be connected to through the Ethernet to an energy management system. Okay, so this will have this data auction unit which will acquire data, voltage, current, and all these things will be acquired. Like if you see charge and discharging, sensors, actuators, all will be acquired by using this. And you can see all these things from performance tracking, and all these things can be done by using cloud tracking, performance tracking you can use. Right. So that's about it, okay, for energy storage systems. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Sir, once again, thank you, sir, for your informative session.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity here.
So now the session is open to participants again to raise the queries, if any. So participants, kindly post your queries in chat box or through group.
So if no questions, then I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity to give my uh, my insights on how this tools can be used to develop your applications in future. So if you have any questions, you can also contact me through the contact which I'll share it in the
Um,
in the messages. Okay, so if you have any queries, you can basically contact me. Mostly mail is preferred. Okay, because call means probably I will be in some other task assigned. So mostly if you have any queries with respect to application development, please let me know.
yes, sir. So participants, if having any queries, please put it down. SAR's mail IDs and contact number is posted in chat box. So at this juncture, sir, I would like to thank each and every one participants for joining in the session. So I just thank once again, sir, Rajkumar sir, for having you in the session. It is our honor to be present with you, sir.
Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. It's an honor for me to be a part of this FTP program.
Thank you so much, sir. We will once again meet you in further sessions, sir, future sessions, sir.
Thank you very much.